Hello and welcome, and maybe good afternoon, evening, morning, I don't know when you're watching this. But anyway, today I want to very easily and simply show you how to implement 2D camera movement into Unity. And what I mean by that is I want to teach you how to get the camera to follow the player. That's it, it's going to be as simple as possible, so I hope you enjoy the video and I hope it helps out. So, starting off, I've got a nice simple Unity scene here, and I've added a couple things just to help get us ready to implement camera movement. I've added a couple level objects so we can tell when the camera's moving, as well as a player in the main camera. I'm also going to be using the movement script which I created in my previous tutorial, and if you want to see how that is made, then go ahead and watch the video. I'll put a link in the description below. It's just going to be used to move the player around, nothing too crazy, don't worry. Now, the absolute simplest way to have your camera follow where the player moves is to simply click on the camera and just drag it into the player. So it's a child of the player. And then if you're going to want to go ahead and click play. That's all you need to do, and you'll see that when you move around, thanks to having the background visible, you'll see that the player is moving and the camera is following where the player is. And when we go back to regular view or scene view and keep it playing, you can see that when the player moves around, the borders of the camera also move, so it's quite obvious that the camera is moving with the player. Whilst this method is extremely simple, there is an issue which arises because of it. Due to the main camera now being a child of the player, it means it will inherit anything that happens to the player. For example, when we move the player around simply, the camera also follows it as it's a child of the player game object. What can be an issue is that when you rotate the player, the camera also rotates with it. Now for some games this is fine, like this is the look you are trying to get. But for example, for games where the player is constantly looking at the cursor, this can become disorientating. Another potential issue is if the player becomes inactive, so does the main camera, meaning the user cannot even see the game. For the rest of this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make the camera follow the player but not rotate as the player does. So to start off, all we need to do simply is just dechild the main camera from the player. So just click on that main camera and drag it off the player. I'm having a little bit of struggle here, but don't worry, that's all sorted. What we're going to do next is right click on the assets and just create a new C# script and call it something like camera movement. Although camera follows player would also do, because that's exactly what it's going to do. We have the camera follow. Once the script editor has opened up, the first thing we're going to want to do is create a reference to the transform component of the player. This is because we want the transform values of the camera to match the player. Obviously make it public so that we can mess around with it in Unity. Next, we're going to write a line of code in the void update section as we want it to be running continuously. Firstly, we're going to type transform.position as we're going to be changing the position of whatever object this script is attached to, which will be the camera. And then we're going to put equals new vector3, and then for now it'll be x, y, and z, as a vector3 requires 3 values. For this instance, the 3 values actually determine the x position, the y position, and the z position of the position of, well, the object this script is attached to. So we need to actually set these values, which is what we're going to do. We're going to take it from the player reference. So where the x is, you're going to put player.position.x, which is a reference to the x position of the player object. And then do the same for y, so it's player.position.y. For the z coordinate, however, we're not going to use the player's reference. We're just going to keep it the same as what it is. So we're just going to put transform.position.z. If we try and match it to the players, it ends up causing some rendering issues, so you actually can't see anything on your screen because the camera's moved to where the player is, and since it's 2D, there's a layering issue. Feel free to check it out if you want to, but if we're all done here, just click on save and we'll head back to Unity. Now that it's loaded up, if you click on your camera movement script, you will see that all the new nice cheeky lines we just added, they appear right there. So we're going to click on the main camera, and then we're just going to drag our camera movement script right onto it. Or if you want, you can click on our component and go through it that way. Once it's in, you can see that we've got our nice space available to drag the player into it. So we're going to drag the player, and when it pops in, you can see that it's already found the transform component on the player for us. So we're just going to hit play now and wait for it to load up. As you can see, the camera once again follows the player, but we truly want to test if the camera doesn't rotate when the player does. So I'm going to unmaximize now, keep the game running, then click on player, and I'm going to rotate it around. And as you can see in the game view, the camera doesn't rotate, but the player is still able to move. So we've managed to solve that issue. Technically that's it, but I want to show you a nice little trick just to help further simplify things. Head back to your camera movement script because we want to add one simple line to inside of the void start function, which will run as soon as the game starts playing. The next line looks like a lot, but it's actually not. So what we're going to write is player equals GameObject dot find GameObject with tag, and then in the two brackets and then quotation marks you're going to put the word player. Make sure you have a capital P. Then after that, dot get component, two little snappy crocodile jaws, and then inside of that transform. Then after that, two more brackets and then semicolon. Now that sounded like a lot, but I'm going to break it down very quickly. So firstly, we have the reference of player, and then we set that, or we tell the computer to find a game object in our game which has the tag player associated it. Once it finds that, we want it to then look inside of that object to see if there is a transform component attached to it. It then attaches that transform component to our reference player. Once the player in Unity has the player tag, this line will allow us to not have to drag player into the camera movement script every time we start a new scene. Thanks to this line, we no longer need to have our transform parent. We no longer need to have it available as public, as the code will find it for us automatically. Save it and head back to Unity, and you'll see that in the camera movement script, our new line is there. Then what you're going to want to do is click on the player object, and right underneath where his name is on the right hand side in the inspector, you see that tag untagged. Click on that, and it'll open a drop down box, then click on player. Hence why you saw why we entered the capital P and make sure it's played right. That now is a tag player, so if you click on play, you can then see that when we move it around, the player moves around. The script works without it perfectly fine, which is exactly what we wanted, and it saved us having to drag player into the script on the camera movement. Which, if we actually look at main camera, you will see that box isn't even there anymore, and that's because we took the public element out of it earlier. Thanks for watching, and I hope that's helped you be able to get your camera to now follow your 2D player. As always in game dev, there's 100 ways to do the same thing. This is the way I believe is simplest for this. And it's also nice to know that, definitely as I've shown in this video, just because it's wrong doesn't mean it can't be useful. So yes, earlier we had the camera rotated, but for some games, as I said earlier, it can work out. In the end, if you like it, then who cares? It's your game, so you get to choose what happens, as long as you've had fun making it. So, thanks for watching, and in the background at the moment you may notice this is not what we made. No, this is what I ended up making. I've been working on it for a while, and I've actually got this in my game. It's coming out in a couple of weeks, so if you like the looks of it, I'll put a link down to the store page later. But aside from that, if you have any comments, questions you want me to answer, or any more tutorials you want me to make about something specific, comment it away and I'll happily respond to every single one. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope this video helped out, and I hope to see you next time. Hope you all have a blast. See you later.